I'm delighted to welcome Helen Kendrick, the CEO of Recruit for Spouses. We've had a lot of questions come through from spouses today and what support is out there. So I'm absolutely delighted to hand over to Helen, and I will hand over to you now.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for attending today and hanging on to listen to our quick speech today. Thanks also to the Officers Association for your support, and it was really interesting to hear the panel talk about military spouse employment. So, my name is Helen Kendrick, and I'm the founder of Recruit for Spouses. Myself, also a military wife. I set up the business Social Enterprise in 2011, nearly 10 years ago now. The reason I set it up was because I saw a need, and I saw that something needed to be done to change the narrative around military spouse employment. So just to give you a little bit of background about what we do, we are a social enterprise, which means that every spouse we help into work, we support another 5 with CV building, confidence skills, and that kind of stuff. So today I'll talk to you about what the business does, what our career academy does, and how that can potentially help you as well as you transition into the next, your next sort of journey, really part of your journey. We also have Fiona Walker on, who left the services in 2019. She was in the army, so she has first-hand experience of how we have helped her as well. So what do we do? So we engage with companies, the companies that we were just talking to now, companies such as that, to educate them and get their understanding of what military spouses can do to support them in their sort of business. We have the 2 parts of the business. Is we have our engine, which is Recruit for Spouses, and we go out to market and we get service level agreements and contracts with clients such as Virgin, Rolls-Royce, HSBC to actually employ spouses. We currently have over 6,500 military spouses on our database. We have just over 2,500 that are looking for work, and we have about a pool of around 200 that we have prepped and ready to go into work. We have spouses that are working 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, around the clock, around the world. So we have spouses based in Australia, UK, British force spouses that are working for our clients based in the States, in Australia. And the great thing is for these spouses, and the pandemic is something that has made that a lot more accessible for them, is that they can actually maintain their work as they go around, as they work, as they move around with the military. We also help veteran spouses. We do a lot of that, and we help people that have been maybe out of the army for a while. The other part of our business is our career academy, and that was launched in 2017 when we realised that something more had to be done to support our spouses. Now, the panelists earlier on were talking about the challenges that each spouse faces, and we know all too well those challenges. We have 75% of our spouses that we onboard onto our teams, they haven't worked for over 5 years. Now, that can be, we have such a range of skills in our teams. We have scientists. We had somebody the other week who was worked for NASA. We have PAs, we have barristers, we have lawyers, we have teachers, midwives, NHS, to everything and in between. And our main effort is to find them work, whether they find work with us or whether they find work with somebody else. It doesn't matter. But the most important thing for us, our key objective, is to help as many military spouses and veterans into work. So how do we do it? When they come into Recruit for Spouses, they actually, it's been a bit like a warm hug, dare I say, but we have a look at the sort of whole holistic way. And I know that today you've had a lot of information, so I'm going to keep it as crisp and clear as I possibly can, because I know there's a lot of things that you need to take in. So we upskill, we do a lot of upskilling. When we get the spouses and they come in, they actually, we work with clients such as Facebook and Google. We have a digital marketing course that we have around 100 spouses that attend that course every year. We also train spouses to be resource specialists. It doesn't matter if they haven't got any experience, and actually this is a really good conduit between whether they're not quite sure what to do, or they could be a career change or anything like that. So that's really good. So the resourcing specialist role is really interesting, because they get trained on the job and then they work with our clients. The other thing that we've just recently started doing is working in the financial sector. Level 5 sort of financial traders is that what we're working on as well is training spouses and paying them to be trained as well, so that they end up with a certification and they go straight into work. So that is our main effort, that we have a pipeline of military spouses that we have. The great thing that we do is that, and I think, is understanding the innate challenges that we face. So, for example, a lot of our spouses are still serving, their partners are still serving. So particularly Navy at the moment are seeing a lot of, there's not much shore leave, shore drafts are back to back at the moment. They're really struggling. So our coaching program that we'll talk about in a minute is integral to the longevity and the success, the long-term success of a successful worker. So we know that the military, they talked about soft skills. We actually say their skills is scientific research and evidence now to prove that resilience is one of those key skills that most employers look for. And actually military spouses grow and they learn, they sort of bring on the sort of resilience role very quickly, and adaptability, because of the nature of their lifestyle. So moving quickly, moving every 2 years, finding schools for children, all these sort of things can affect how a spouse actually looks for work. And that is where our coaching program sits. So we will support a spouse as they come into our coaching academy, and we will give them 6 sessions of coaching, which again is free. Everything that we do in the Career Academy is free for spouses. And then from there, once they're into work, we will also put them sort of on the back burner if they're under a lot of pressure. So spouses, especially as I mentioned earlier with the Navy, are finding it really challenging at the moment. So we have teams at the moment working in Virgin, and we've got about 5 or 6 of them, which are Navy spouses. So we have a team of coaches that are supporting them regularly around, particularly during the pandemic, when they were homeschooling, they had children at home, they were working from home. We saw our productivity really plummet. So it was around really sort of supporting them around that. And actually, so that's really in a nutshell as a business what we do. But I think it's important to know that the businesses see the advantage of working with our teams. What we've realised is when you get a whole cohort of military spouses, they're actually working as a team. And I think this is one in isolation, a military spouse, an employer would say, she was great or he was great, fantastic. They were adaptable, they were resourceful, they were resilient. What a great person. Now, they're a great advocate for military spouses, but when you get a team, a cohort of 10, that's when the power and the magic, dare I use that word, really happens. So we had a team of 20 SF spouses that were sitting in the Virgin account. We coached them, we trained them, we coached them, we supported them into the role. They go through a lot of high deployments at the drop of a hat, so we were dealing with a lot of that at the time. They interestingly started performing, and we had to do an onboarding to get them in. And then actually from our perspective, we have to manage our clients' expectations, which is key. So at the end of the day, for a client, they're just, all they're concerned about is their bottom line. Is it going to make their business better? Is it going to improve their business? And how are they going to benefit from it? I do believe that goodwill is all great, but it does have a shelf life. So we really work very closely with our really good clients, such as Virgin and Alexander Mann Solutions, around challenging that sort of that perception really of military spouses. Now, when our cohort of 10 was in Virgin, they told us that they needed them to perform at 75%. And bearing in mind, these are spouses with husbands, serving partners that were away a lot, and young children in a pandemic. We had a phone call the first week, and we thought, oh gosh, something's gone wrong. And they said there's something wrong with the measurements. They're performing at 100%, and they said, we've never seen this before. And we said, well, because we know that they're prepped, they're adaptable, they're resilient, they're resourceful. And they maintained that level throughout the pandemic of 100%, so much so that they use us as a main, one of their main suppliers now to that team. So that's a really good example of when you get a cohort of people who really understand the skills from a military environment. Now, many of us haven't had the training like you have, but actually we do sort of, as I said earlier, by moving frequently, having children or not, or just moving it around the country, around the world, we sort of garner these skills. Now, part of the coaching program, and Fiona will talk about this in a minute, and this may be a little bit sort of airy-fairy for officers, but it really does work. And it's a really good way of crystallizing and clarifying what you need, is what we call the Wheel of Life. Now, the Wheel of Life is, and we can download it. I don't know if we've got an example here on the screen, but maybe not. But the Wheel of Life is a really good indicator to sort of when you're, oh, it's here, that's great. It's a really good way, it's the Venn diagram, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with, is really looking at what you're good at, and forget, you know, not forget your military training, but really look at as you're in your next chapter of your life, what am I good at? What do I love to do? And what will someone pay me to do? And this is, and then in the middle of that is your dream job. And I think what, you know, as you're leaving, you can really give some good thought, some real thought to this. And if you go to the next page, please. I don't know if it's coming up now, you can see it, but anyway, there's a marker of 1 to 10, and in this Wheel of Life, what you need to do is you go through, so whether it's financial, and what we say is to the spouse, you're bringing the whole person to the work, and so actually by going through this top 10 sort of things that you would look at, so it's financial, whether it's childcare, ailing parents, location, wherever you're based, but that's where you need to really think more broadly around what it is you need. Now, the panelists earlier on talked about the flexibility of big clients and big corporates, and we've definitely seen an upturn around flexible working and working from home, which is great. But actually, as we come out of the pandemic, we'll see that people will want to be more kind of office-based. But essentially, what you need to understand if you're looking for work is, what is it I want? What is going to fit into my life now? And how am I going to be better? As they call it, the duvet chuck on a Monday morning. You'd rather be chucking back your duvet and getting up for work rather than thinking, oh gosh, I've got to go to work. And I think you bring so many incredible skills, leadership skills, emotional intelligence is usually really sky high, because you can do all of these, because you have this ability to lead a team, and you know how to project manage. These are all amazing skills that companies we know are desperate for at the moment. So we know that there's probably going to be some questions. So I'm going to go over now to Fiona, who's going to talk to you a little bit more. And I skipped through that really quickly because I know that time is of the essence now. But I know Fiona, you probably more want to hear what she's got to say around being a military leaver, and actually how we supported her, but more importantly the things that she used and the indicators that she used to actually get into work and find employment. And please, if there's any questions, please let me know, but thank you very much for listening.
Okay, good afternoon. Thanks very much, Heledd. So Fiona Walker, I did 29 years in the army, and I left in December, 31st December, and I'm currently on a short-term contract, which I got through a network connection. So Heledd and I have known each other since 2011 because I worked with her husband, and then we met up again in 2019, and Heledd offered me a coach, and she's absolutely right. I didn't think it was for me. I was a bit reticent. It seemed a bit odd to be talking on the telephone, bearing in mind it was pre-COVID, or discussing something with somebody I knew nothing about. But if you roll the clock forward 18 months, I thoroughly recommend coaching. I was determined to make the most of my resettlement, and so yes, I took up the offer. So my coach is a lovely lady called Jude, who works for BAE. She's up in Barrow-in-Furness in the HR department. And we had an introductory call, and we just got on really well. So the Wheel of Life that Heledd just had up on the screen, that's a good start point. But we quickly moved on into other areas that Jude recommended. And it was really good. We had these 1-hour sessions, which were totally focused on me and my plan. And once your friends and family are fantastic, they're emotionally involved, whereas a coach brings you a new perspective because they're taking it from a step further away. It was really useful to have that regular drumbeat of a 1-hour session, just to go through and review what I've done, what I'm going to do next, am I on track, and how am I feeling about the whole process. And I would describe Jude as my funnel, my filter, my wargaming partner. to help me juggle the plates and help me prioritise where I was going next. So it's been a really good one. It comes in useful for a number of reasons to help you to stay on track. So I think my top tips for resettlement would be to have a plan on a page. And I know quite a few people today have spoken about having that plan to get the most out of your resettlement. It only needs to be really simple and very much like Heled's slide. What do I enjoy? What do I want? Am I after a challenge, excitement, decent pay? And then how do I get there? The webinars, the networking and the courses, and of course, coaching. Networking, you need to be really targeted rather than just taking a shotgun approach to it. And you keep a record. I heard somebody else say that earlier. And this little book here has been going now for 2 years. It's got everybody I've met, every course, every book I've been recommended. And I review it every now and then to keep me on track. And I've got all my coaching sessions in there with Jude. If you need help working out your plan, because it is a bit airy-fairy and it's a bit different to us all, then I would recommend Simon Sinek, Why, or Richard Bowles, What Colour is My Parachute? And they're both available as both books and online. And there's many great organisations to help you on your way. So in my little white book, I've got every Officers Association webinar I've been to. It started on my CTP course, Build Force, Forces Transition Group, Rural Link, and of course, Recruit for Spouses, who gave me my coach. So I think that's probably it, Heledd, from me.
Fantastic. Thank you both. And it's great to hear from you, Fiona, to hear it kind of firsthand, how it's helped through your career. And I'm glad that you attended so many OA webinars. Always good to hear. I am quite conscious of time, but we do just have one question if you're happy to take it between you. And that was around kind of timelines of looking for a new role. Obviously, you're not always sure where you're going to be posted or where you're going to actually be living. But from your experience, what kind of timelines are employers working to and looking for you to be applying for roles?
So employers are quite immediate. I mean, what the main thing that we do is we say to people to register with us, and then we can sort of handhold them through the process. It can be within days. We had somebody on board the other day and they were in work the next day. It could be weeks, it could be even a couple of months, but it depends on the role. It really depends on the location. But I think the most important thing to remember here is that there's nothing worse than no job. There's one thing worse than no job, and that's a bad job. And I think don't feel rushed. And I think that's one key thing to take away is never feel rushed into getting work. And, we are a good conduit for that. If we're sort of a buffer, really, if you want to sort of do some temporary work for us, we can support you in that role before you make that decision to the leap in the role. And we've got lots of spouses, veterans as well, who have done that. They've worked for us for a short amount of time and then they've gone in and worked for a client that they've always wanted to work for. I hope that answers your question.
That's brilliant, thank you. And Fiona, Donna in the audience was just asking if you could repeat those two reading recommendations.
No worries, I'm just putting them in the chat. So start with Why and What Colour is My Parachute from Richard Bowles.
Brilliant, thank you. So before I close this presentation, could I just ask about next steps? So people wanting to learn more or get in contact, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I've just put on the chat the website address and my email as well. If anybody has any questions, just please email us and we can send them the Wheel of Life if they want to, because actually it's quite good to physically write it all down with pen and paper, print it off and write it down. It's quite a useful exercise to do.
Definitely, thank you. Well, thank you both for joining us and for sharing your insights today. It's much appreciated.